La raison pour laquelle vous ne pouvez toujours pas parler une deuxième langue couramment, c'est la même raison pour laquelle vous n'êtes toujours pas fort. Et c'est également la même raison pour laquelle vous avez du mal à apprendre des nouvelles compétences en tant qu'adulte. Salut la bande, moi je suis John et quand je suis arrivé en Calédonie il y a 3 ans, je pouvais même pas parler un seul mot en français. Mais après 6 mois, j'ai réussi mon niveau B2 et ces jours-ci, je parle plus ou moins couramment en français. Bien sûr, je dis des bêtises, je fais des erreurs et c'est sûr que mon accent ne se cache pas du tout. Mais je me débrouille quand même. Je pense en français, je m'exprime en français et j'ai des potes francophones. Du coup, ça suffit largement. Du coup, après avoir vu de nombreux étrangers galérer sur la langue française sans progrès durable, et après avoir vu plein de gens autour de moi essayer de se mettre en forme, et après 3 mois abandonner le voyage complet, je me suis rendu compte que les gens, ils ont une idée fausse fondamentale sur l'apprentissage. Ils pensent que l'apprentissage devient plus difficile pour les adultes, ce qui est vrai, mais ils ne rendent pas compte qu'ils ont oublié comment apprendre. So in this video, I'm going to outline for you the mental model that I observe people using some variation of when trying to learn things as an adult. And I'll explain to you how it can manifest both in language learning and in physical fitness, like lifting weights. So language learning is just one of many allegories for a fitness journey and life practice that I'll be using on this channel because it's one dear to me and that I have a lot of experience in and that I've had some decent success in. Then I'll explain to you why this mental model is generally very ineffective, and then I'll explain to you what I try to do instead, which helps me make progress in various hobbies and interests, even as an old-ass man. But before I get into that, I am going to jump to one of the punchlines of this video so that if you click off now, you'll still leave with something valuable. The key message here is that you can do hard things even when you're old. You can learn and change and grow. Learning does not stop when school stops. Now, I will say that I find learning French much easier than I find improving at physical fitness, gaining strength and muscle. I would speculate that I have much more talent for languages than I do for physical practices, but that's actually why I've chosen physical fitness as the primary focus for this channel. Because all my life I believed this narrative that because I was terrible at sports as a kid, that I would always be unfit and out of shape my whole life long. And I reinforced this story by doing nothing physical at all and living a sedentary, boring modern life. And for me, simply taking the plunge to try to fight that uphill battle to get a little bit stronger and a little bit fitter week on week, year on year, was one of the best decisions I ever made. Even if you don't travel as far along the path as other people around you, the benefits of being fitter than you were last year are truly, truly life-changing, and I want that for all of you. Okay, so let's get into it. Most people I meet have this mental model or framework in their mind of how language learning should work. And it's comprised basically of 2 phases. So phase 1 is learning all of the grammar by taking courses and studying books. And then phase 2 is talking to people and conversing in the other language. So in other words, phase 1 is sort of research and study or idea work, learning, as people say. And then phase 2 is actually sort of taking action and putting that learning to work. And I think for most people, this is a big, big mistake because no matter how much time you spend in phase 1, mastering the basics, you will never be ready for phase 2. You'll never actually master the rules of grammar until you see them in the wild and use them in all of the countless contexts that they can be used. But the other direction is different. The time you spend in phase 2 actually conversing with people will drastically help you complete phase 1. Seeing grammar in use in the wild will reinforce the rules much better than memorizing verb conjugations. Learning real common sentence structures actually used by your peers are going to be much more useful for you to mimic, memorize, and eventually improvise on than some stock phrases in a book written 40 years ago. You want to talk like the people you want to be friends with, not like the dude who wrote your book in the 80s. So it makes sense that you'd want the biggest influence on how you talk to be those real people around you who you like, not a bunch of abstract templates about how you theoretically could talk or should talk. And so now to translate this into terms that you fellow meatheads might relate to a little bit more, this is like in fitness when people want to get stronger or they want to build muscle, and so they break down that journey into the same 2 phases. Phase 1 can be learning a bunch of exercises, and phase 2 is going heavy, aka actually training. So people think, right, okay, so I need to master these exercises and get perfect technique. And then once I can perform every set and rep with perfect form, then I'll be ready to start adding weight and going heavy without risk. And so they watch every form video on YouTube and they develop a strong theoretical knowledge of how to perform many exercises, but only with unchallenging weights. And they put off learning how to actually progress. So that's sort of being stuck in phase one. And just like with language learning, phase two here can really help solidify the learnings of phase one. It turns out that actually trying hard can really expose weaknesses in your technique that you'll never notice if you're always leaving 10 reps in reserve. This is especially true with weighted exercises where the center of mass of the barbell body system that you're moving can drastically change as you add weight. For example, when I squat with an empty bar, the vast majority of the weight actually being lifted is just my body weight. So like in my legs and butt, because I'm built like a flamingo. And so keeping the bar over my center of mass is not very important for it to feel easy and natural, because as long as the bar is sort of close to my center of mass, I can still feel balanced. But when I'm carrying more than my body weight on the bar, suddenly the bar position is extremely important. My form literally has to change between these two loading profiles of the squat because the center of mass of the system being lifted changes drastically. And so I can't learn the latter just by doing only the former. I need both. And so the reality here is that you can do both phases concurrently at the same time. You can start going heavy early on and also work on technique at lighter loads, like during your warm-up sets or on separate sessions, just focusing on technique. And the obvious caveat here is don't be a dummy. Heavy is relative, hard is relative. Don't load up 200 kilos on the bar if you're not used to lifting 100 kilos yet. Likewise, don't volunteer to be a keynote speaker in French if you're still learning basic grammar. You're not gonna have a good time. But do try to stretch and challenge yourself gradually within reason. So it's the same with languages. You can do both phases concurrently. Talk to people as often as you have energy for, and also study grammar in parallel. Both of these practices will help each other synergistically, and then by the time you finish that last chapter in your book and you've learned all the grammar up to level C1, you will have already conquered your fear of speaking in that foreign language. You'll have made a fool of yourself 1,000 times and just finally be at peace with that. And if you've been lucky enough to talk to some nice people along the way, you'll have probably made some very patient friends already. Likewise, as you're working on your exercise technique, you will already have also been making strength and muscular gains because you won't have been skipping the very thing that stimulates those gains in the first place, which is actually competing hard sets and training near failure. So let's take a step back for a moment. Why do people make this mistake? I think it's based in fear. I think it's essentially a form of procrastination. Studying grammar alone for 20 minutes a day is pretty easy. Doing flashcards on your phone where no one can judge you is not at all scary. It's work, but it's not scary. On the other hand, trying to tell a story or make a joke in another language is very scary. Trying to make a new friend and ask them to do something with you on the weekend is quite intimidating when you have the vocabulary of a toddler. Back in the fitness zone, doing sets with light weights in order to work on your technique is very easy. Saying, no, I don't think that technique was good enough, I'll wait another week before I add some weight to the bar, is often just a form of procrastination. Because getting under that heavy barbell is very intimidating. Finding your working weight in a new exercise and realizing that it's actually pretty light and that you're actually pretty weak is kind of scary. It's a hit to the ego and it doesn't feel great. So the key lesson here is to take that risk that you're afraid of as soon as possible. Don't let the fear hold you back from actually doing the most meaningful work. Front load the risk. Most people feel fear and they turn the other way, but not us. You and me? No. We feel the fear and we turn directly towards it and we begin diligent practice, methodically working towards trying ever so slowly to overcome it. We want to take slow, methodical steps in precisely that direction because that is where the growth is. Your dreams are hiding behind a wall of your fears. Now, if we take a step back and we look at your motivations for either learning a language or trying to learn a new exercise or get fit, it's clear that the results that you want from these practices and the experiences that you want to have along the way come only from phase two and never from phase one. You want to spend time speaking to people in another language, and you want to be able to go about your daily business without having to rack your brain to find the right phrase and just generally being misunderstood. You want to make friends and you want to experience different cultures. And no matter what your level of grammar is, only phase two involves actually experiencing those things, because only phase two actually involves interacting with the world. You don't want to learn a language just to have a high score on Duolingo. So why would you do only that and procrastinate and mortgage away your actual enjoyment of the process, your true motivation for doing the process in the first place, for some future day when you're ready? It doesn't make any sense. We all make it, but it's a mistake. Likewise, in our weightlifting example, you probably want to squat so that you can experience the pure joy of laying it all on the line in a heavy sweat of squats. You probably actually want stronger, more functional legs and a stronger back or bigger muscles or whatever. You want to feel fucking solid during the tasks of daily life. The main effect that you're trying to get out of lifting weights is probably not technical mastery of moving an empty barbell, is it? So why not just start experiencing those things that you want sooner rather than later? Experiencing and practicing a challenge with many of the same attributes as your goal, just dialed back to your current level, is very, very fun and very motivating, but also very scary. The first successful French conversation you have, no matter how small or insignificant, feels amazing. The first time really pushing it hard on a set of overhead press feels incredible, even if the weight you're lifting is less than half your goal weight, or much less than people you see on the internet. That doesn't matter. The small progress and the knowledge that you're actually doing something hard and pushing your limits feels incredible at whatever level you're at. Getting lost on a side quest which has none of the experiential attributes that you want doesn't feel great, and most people who spend too long on these side quests will just quit because there's no motivation in it. The reality is that we all let fear hold us back for too long. Just take the plunge and do that hard thing that you've been avoiding, because it's actually that hard thing that you really want to be doing in the first place. Doing that hard thing is the goal. Try not to get lost on some side quest that isn't nearly as rewarding or effective on its own. The side quest might be easier, and if it is, you should be very skeptical of that, because learning new things is not easy. It's really fucking hard, but it's totally worth it. So that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. As always, let's train smarter, move more, and improve our lives together. Peace.